Welcome, folks, to the CC Zone. This is Season 2, Episode 4. I'm Brankles, and I'm joined by Orion. Orion, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good, I just got a haircut. You're looking pretty fresh. You're also looking mighty fine yourself in a nice little suit jacket, so, looking pretty good.
I took the suit jacket off, though. It was a little too warm in here. The temperature is getting pretty warm here in North Dakota, so I had to, take that off. But we're going to be talking about some of the matches that happened this past week. The CCS, we saw some teams meet to expectations, but we also had some teams that just fall flat, with those expectations that were expected throughout the week. Orion, is there a team that you felt that did not perform well or perform to the expectations you had?
I think I gotta have to go with TA Light. TA Light versus TA Knight was a match that was on the mainstream on Wednesday. It was supposed to be a pretty good match, in my opinion. I even predicted TA Light to potentially take a game or even potentially win the series if they played really, really well. Unfortunately for them, game one, they were in a position to win that game. They made a pretty big blunder topside, trying to chase an Echo that still had his ultimate available to him, which ended up causing him to lose the fight and lose the Baron at the same time. So even though there was a pretty big compositional difference, they ended up just losing out on that game. And then game two was just a stomp from TA Knight. So a little disappointing in TA Light's performance, but at the same time, you do have to give a lot of credit to TA Knight winning game one and taking that momentum into game two and having an overall successful series.
And I have to agree with you. I looked at TA Knight's series, and people were saying, "Oh, what can TA Light do to mitigate some of the high pressure situations?" All TA Knight had to do was ban out Victor, and TA Light just fell apart. I mean, did not do great on the Corki, and that was Dr. Phil and Chill. Had a not so great game on the Anivia. And say what you want, this team lives and dies by the Victor, and that's not good. Like, if you are going to be one of the top teams in the conference, you need to find other ways to play. Because if you're just going to play Victor, and then you get banned out and you fall apart. I mean, Cynical Support he went 0-7-5 on the Rakan. Now Rakan's a champ that dives in. Well, if you don't have any other support coming in through there, what are you going to do? And it just feels like TA Light fell apart. And now they're going to be playing catch up to try to see if they can get into the top side of that conference, because TA Knight's got the head-to-head on them. They're going to have to face teams like DNX, and what do you do in those situations?
Yeah, I definitely do think TA Light did get a little bit exposed against TA Knight. Going into it, obviously, TA Knight is a team that joined Team Ambition, so it's like they're not really quote-unquote sister teams. But still, TA Knight did show that they are the better team. And like you mentioned, they still have to play DNX. They still have to play Hard Hat. So two probably teams that are even potentially better than TA Knight is. So you're looking at potentially 2 losses, maybe even 3 losses as the season progresses. So for TA Light, definitely got to step up a little bit for sure, and definitely have to improve a lot on probably some more decision makings for sure.
And on the other side, I mean, you take a look at TA Knight. I think is Overrick the best ADC in the Wednesday division? I mean, time and time again, we're seeing him step up to the plate, and he went up against TA Light's ADC ARAM and took him to the woodshed. There's no other way to say it. Overrick played the Zeri in game 2. And I think in game 1, if I'm not mistaken, he also played the Varus. So he showed that he could play the standstill champions like Varus. He can show the mobility. I just feel like TA Knight is starting to peak at the right time, and I think that they're going to make a push, towards that top side of the conference. Whereas TA Light is just, it feels like you need to go back to the drawing board because all you had was Victor, and that was about it.
Yeah, Overic and Snow Life especially have been a very strong 2v2 duo. Definitely look for them to continue that prowess. I'm pretty sure Overic has something crazy, like 2.3 million mastery points on Varus. I'm not sure if I'm exposing him or not, but I mean, if you just click the client, you can just tell how many mastery points he has. So he has a lot on that champion. So very well experienced on that guy. And then even when Varus gets banned or it's like a bad landing matchup, he goes to the Zuri, he goes to the Jinx of the world, and it's two champions that are still very, very strong. So, definitely got to give a lot of credit to those guys.
I don't understand why anyone would have that many mastery points in a champ. One time, Orion, I was playing a ranked match, and the top side Teemo had 3 million, and it just made me like sick to my stomach. Like, why would you play a champion that much? Why?
I mean, I don't know, man. It's just probably just one of those champions he just really likes enjoying playing. And like, especially for a champion like Varus, who isn't really quote unquote meta for a lot of AD carries in the CCS. It's kind of like that pocket pick that he has, where it's like if you waste a ban on Varus, that means you're leaving champions like Zeri, like Jinx. Like if you have to ban those 3 AD carries, there's other power picks in other lanes that could potentially be a pretty big threat to your team. So having a player like that has that pocket pick and very much experienced on it can be pretty deadly for your team.
Well, let's move to a team that also, we have expectations of, and that's expectations of losing, and that's Zeal Blue. Zeal Blue has had a rough year so far. It just seems like time and time again. In the Wednesday reaction video, I had to use a scene from Casino where Joe Pesci's brother's just getting the living daylights beaten out of him. And I'm just like, every week, you're like, okay, can Zeal Blue do anything besides lose? And it just doesn't feel like they are being cohesive. And this isn't just to say like, oh, these players can't play. They're probably way better than some other players that I've played with. Mm-hmm. But when you have situations where you're facing up against Dorado, I said that pronounced. I think I pronounced that right. I'm just gonna call him DGO, right? I'll call him DGO to avoid that. But you take a look at with that squad, and you have Naysayer playing the Zillion, and you have Pepacito playing the Ornn. When the Ornn goes 6-4 and 12, that's a scary proposition. I don't care. I didn't necessarily look at that game. I can just tell you, if an Ornn is 6-4 and 12, you're having yourself a bad time in the top lane. And you're also not getting much from the other lanes. I mean, Seijo went 1-7 and 8 on the Rice, right? Mm-hmm. For supporter, he did go 4-4 and 10 on the Gwen, but we've also seen Gwen pop off in other games. But also, Lunsbuns went 0-9 and 9. And and one thing that you had made a point before we started is that sometimes, hey, maybe the player is just having a bad game and it's just it's just turboing, it's snowballing, right? But it just seems like when you look at the other stats, they did have 2 Rift Heralds. They did have 2 Dragons. They had 1 Baron. It feels like maybe they just got too desperate in their matchups and they just want to win. And I feel as though got to start small, right? Because was it Hydron? I think I pronounced that right. Hydron had 18,000 gold. He had the most gold on any team on the other side, and he went 9-7 and 2 on Jinx. Ryan, do you feel as though Zeal Blue is just having what can they do?
Well, so I was looking into the games a little bit. Both games actually went 40 minutes plus. So it's one of those games where it's like the longer the game goes, the goal becomes less and less relevant. So especially in a situation where like you have Jinx on your team, you even have Rise scaling, Gwen scaling. Like if you just play some of these team fights out well enough, even though you're down some gold, like once you're past 40 minutes plus, you can actually win out in some of these fights, which is probably what ended up happening. Like you see, just like you mentioned, Hydron having like the 9-7-2, definitely obviously not a great performance, but in terms of like his teammates around him, he was definitely the best performing player on his team. And playing a champion like Jinx, like you kind of do have to be the main catalyst of your team. So I think for Zeal Blue, obviously they did get 2-0'd, which, in terms of the scorecard and your overall record doesn't look very good. But to go 2-0 and to have the games be 40-minute plus against a team like Dorado, who has shown that they're definitely a team looking to compete for that top of the table, can be a good sign for them, potentially, like saying, hey, like we're fighting, we're not just getting blown out. They're not 25-minute losses, right? So there can be some upsides, but they are going to have to find a way to somehow start squeaking out some wins here if they're going to want to make that push towards playoffs.
I have to agree with you. The one issue I'm starting to realize sometimes with Dorado is that this is now back-to-back weeks where they're being pushed to 40 minutes, right?
Mm.
At some point, I know that some of it is like, hey, maybe we're trying something out new, or they're still implementing, new players to the system. But when you're facing a team like Zeal Blue, you just got to put you got to put the foot on the throat. There's no point that Zeal Blue should be hanging around that long, because I want to say, like, on average, I've seen is that Zeal Blue has had like less than 23 minutes in most of their matches. So at some point, I feel like Dorado, and maybe that's just their chemistry that they're building, based off of the fact that they added new players. But hopefully this next week we see them, because if we see another performance where they're like 40 minutes plus games, it's like, are you having troubles in the early game? Is that what's happening? So we'll see from that. But yeah, just I feel like Dorado's got room to grow. I just feel like Zeal Blue, they got to find something. They got to find a different way to to play the game, because it's just not working. And I feel, and if I'm not mistaken, if we take a look at the standings, I mean, they're 1-8 in game record, 0-4 on the season. At some point, you're going to get, either you're going to be reserved for the qualifying tournament or you're eliminated. And they're going to have a long, hard battle ahead of them if they want to make it out of that.
Yeah, very, very much so. A very uphill battle for them for sure. Definitely have to wait to see, if they are able to make these necessary changes. Mathematically, there's still probably a chance in terms of like if they somehow go 5-0 and they just sweep. Maybe there's a chance they finish out the season 5-4 and they can kind of fight for that 6th place spot in playoffs. Probably very unlikely for this team due to like some of the middle of the pack teams for Wednesday's group being pretty strong. In terms of like they're actually teams that should just kind of wipe the floor with the bottom half teams. But kind of going back off your Dorado comment, talking about how like this team should be beating the brakes off a team like Zeal Blue. It's like it's kind of a worrying sign for Dorado, for the fact that obviously like against a team like Zeal Blue, like this is a team that you should be better than, a team that you should be like kind of just very easily handling. And for the game to last 40 minutes plus in both games, yeah, you 2-0'd, but definitely not clean wins by any means. And if you want to compete for the top, you have to play clean games against bottom half teams. So that way you can actually know how to play a clean game. Because if you expect yourself to go 40-minute plus every single time against teams like Hardhat or like DNX, even potentially like TA Knight, like those guys have been stomping the bottom half teams, like clean sweeps, 25-minute games, and they're very ruthless in a lot of the games. So it's a sign of a good team. So if you're taking a long time to finish games and you're being very slow and you're not pushing the floor to the pedal to the floor and being very aggressive with your games, it can be a worrying trend.
And speaking of teams that had worrying trends, is still collective effort. I mean, the defending champs, they went 2-1 against Red Panda Gaming. It just doesn't feel like this team is firing on all cylinders still. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's just, oh, it's a new season and there's just many more teams. But man, like you go 2-1 against Red Panda, and Red Panda is not great. Let's not mince words. I do like some of their players. I mean, Ziggs with Shades had a nice game on the Akali, but you go 2-1 against that team. We were talking about Dorado not finishing. What are you doing against 2-1 against Red Panda? And then they lose 2-1 to Hard Hat, which was a remake that happened earlier in the year, and they pull a game off. So it's just like this team doesn't feel like it's consistent right now. It's either, oh man, we are feeling great about ourselves, we've got to win, or it's just like, wow, we went 0-2 this week, or oh, we lost to 1-2 because we gave up this pick, or they fall apart in the mid game. What do you see, Orion, with this defending champs? Are they just going to continue to be inconsistent?
I think for now, probably they have to find a way to play around someone else, not name Rowdy Randy. It's honestly every game that I see Collective play, it's just the Rowdy Randy show, and everyone else just is like, hey, like how can we help you win the game for us? It's kind of like the whole, it was the meme, Bjergsen and 4 awards type thing. Obviously, this guy's nowhere near Bjergsen's level. But just him and like four other supportive people trying to help him play the game. Obviously, there was a couple times where Flan had some good Jinx games, and he was help facilitating that notion. But when the games get very gritty for this team, Rowdy Randy he wants to take control of the game. Like obviously, I think it was game 3 against Red Panda. He even pulled out the Zuri in the mid lane, saying, "Hey, I'm going to play the broken champion," even though the champion's traditionally an AD carry. He said, "Hey, I want it to be in my hands because I know that I'm confident in my capabilities." So for him, like obviously, like him still playing at a high level is very important for this team. But everyone else needs to step up around him, because no matter how well this guy is playing, if everyone else around you is losing, it's really hard, especially now in this meta, for mid lane to take control of a game and just 1v9. Like maybe a couple years ago, you could have mid laners just win lane and just win game. That's a little bit less effective now.
And one thing I remember we talked about last week, I was asking you, hey, why isn't Trundle viewed as like this top carry in the jungle? And you're like, well, he's more utility. He's got the Pillar of Ice. He's got ways of taking away attack damage. And I look at their lineup in game 3 against Horizon or against Hard Hat. You have the Shen with Tisda. You have Drip Irrigation on the Trundle. That doesn't feel like a recipe of success. That to me just feels as though, we're going to rely on Rowdy Randy / Philly B to carry us because he was playing the Akali. And then on the bot side, Cider Bill went 0-6-4. They had a horrible time. He had only about 5,700 gold. And you look at the other side, Dragon Mooncake on the Leoto, 3-0-8. Then you also have, you have Llama on Poppy going 1-2-9, and that's not necessarily a great score, but that's a Poppy in the jungle that's just dominating the situation against a Trundle. Trundle, to me, is like the perfect anti-tank. You can use your subjugation to just strip all that. There's so many tools, and you're losing in that battle. It just really tells you and paints a picture of what's going on with the collective. But moving on, Orion, to wrap up with the Wednesday division, because unfortunately, Blue Esports said, okay, it's just the same thing over and over again. I feel like they just don't. They're not really finding ways to win, and if they do win, it's against Zeal Blue. So I feel like they need to really, hone in on some stuff. But DNX is the top team. I think DNX is really good, and I know people like, I know people like Chelsea and Flay and some others. They're like, oh well, DNX has kind of had a soft schedule. I don't care about a soft schedule. If I look at a team and I'm like, all right, they're playing the Ahri. They're playing the Jinx. They're playing the Mordekaiser. And they're doing it in a dominant fashion. They're in game 1 against Blue Esports, they had a 33-minute game. But they also took 10 towers. They had 3 dragons, 2 Rift Heralds, 1 Baron. Whereas if you look at the other side, yeah, it's a 33-minute match. They only gave up 1 tower. They only gave up 2 dragons. So to me, that really says, hey, this team had a win condition they wanted to go through, and they worked to that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I look at the other teams in the league, they're not as consistent. Whereas DNX, I feel it's like has been doing that all season long.
Yeah, and that's definitely why DNX is at the top of the table. I mean, obviously this week they play TA Knight, which should be a pretty solid series in my opinion. I think obviously 2 teams kind of fighting for that top spot. You know, TA Knight only losing to Hard Hat so far. DNX hasn't played anyone else to like kind of match their level of play so far. You know, the one match that I'm really looking forward to, besides, you know, obviously this week, you know, TA Knight and DNX is going to be the match between DNX and Hard Hat. You know, if DNX comes out on top of that, then hands down, they are the best team in Wednesday's group. But it's hard to say that DNX is the top team in the group without beating the team that's been smashing everyone else that they've basically come across in Hard Hat Zone. So that's the game. Like after that week, if DNX comes out on top of that, undisputed, they're the best team in Wednesday's group. Undisputed. Not even close. Hard Hat Zone second. And then because they've already beat TA Knight. So that's the one. That's the week where it's like, okay, it's time to put up or shut up for DNX. Because DNX they've been having a lot of talk. They're saying, hey, we're being disrespected a little bit. We think we're the best. So when they play Hard Hat, that's when they're going to show it. So that's the match that I'm really looking forward to.
I agree with that. And also, moving on to the Thursday division, you know, before we have our guests come on, can we talk about how PGO had a strong showing? I mean, last week they were getting dragged through the mud about the Grinchy Goons loss. Mm-hmm. And we were hearing people calling Zone washed. They're saying, oh, Zone's going to throw furniture. And he posted a video from like 6 years ago when he threw something. But I feel like they went back and they figured it out. You know, Sensei Squad was kind of, you know, feeling themselves as well. You know, they were kind of on a bit of a streak. But hey, PGO just looked like they were strong again. You know, they had some great showings out of Zone, and I think if I'm not mistaken, that bot lane was just also really dominant on the Caitlyn. Mm-hmm. I want to say 16-3-9, I think was the score. So like to me, that just makes it feel as though I feel like PGO is back on track.
Yeah, I think PGO obviously had a pretty rough week, you would say, going against Grinchy Goons. But obviously, you know, going in this match, you know, Sensei Squad, another team that you would probably say that is probably towards the bottom of Thursday's group. So this is definitely a really big bounce back week for PGO. So it's a really important win for them this week. Obviously, you know, to kind of stay towards the middle / top of the pack for them. I do think PGO will remain towards that top half, but I think someone else has also mentioned to me before that PGO had a very similar thing happen the last time where they lost to a bottom team, and then once they lost, they got their crap put together, and they said, okay, no more losses, we're running the table, and we're going to be a dominant team. So we will see if that trend continues.
No, I agree. I know that there's some people out there that will say like, oh, was PGO all that dominant, or were they a strong showing? Well, I gotta say this: they made a change. I know that someone else went. I know that they made a change in the bot lane. I think it was is what happened, and it's commendable. I do think if you feel as though that something doesn't work out, and it's clearly not working out, make some changes. You know, too many times we see teams that get stuck and trying to figure out, or they're like, oh, we can work through this. You know, unfortunately, not to pick on them again, but like Zeal Blue, you know, we don't hear much from them because I don't feel as though they're trying to figure out how they're going to win these games. Whereas, you know, you look at PGO, you look at Dorado, you look at other teams, it's like, I mean, Dorado's was more, hey, this guy had a change in lifestyle, and they made the necessary changes. Mm-hmm. PGO, I like it. I like what Zone and them are doing, and I feel as though they do get disrespected because it's like, oh, we're going to go after the biggest, one of the biggest trash talkers in the league. Well, I'm sorry, if they win and they show that they win and it's a 2-0 win, by all means, talk it. Go for it. I do want to see though PGO versus Goldfish Gaming again one day. Like I want to see that matchup just so I could see just because I want to see Mossy versus Zone in Trash Talk, especially in the Discord server. Because I love it. And I got a soft spot. I know that we meme about Hiccup having like this, man love for Zone and the hoodies, but like I do love a good time where a player just has, the trash talking. And before we have our guest come on, touching on some more teams, Zeal White won. White won at the expense of Crosspoint Origin. Just I felt so bad. I felt like this was the day that Crosspoint Origin was going to win and finally get a series victory, but it just wasn't to be. And that's heartbreaking. Orion, do you feel as though Crosspoint Origin is trying to make those changes though?
Yeah, I think every team is trying to compete to be the best team they possibly can be. Unfortunately, though, there are teams that are towards the top, and there are teams that have to be towards the bottom in terms of just how standings work. So hopefully, especially for teams like Crosspoint, like Zeal White, and like Grinchy Goons, like you're still like while you are the bottom half of the table, you're still competing to like potentially play in the I can't. It's blanking on me. The basically open qualifier for CCS, like the next splits, and then obviously like if you're the bottom, like you're just straight kicked out of the league. So obviously for these teams, like obviously like you might not be competing necessarily for a playoff spot, but you could be competing for like your life in the CCS in a sense. So definitely like it's really important for these teams just to continue fighting and kind of you can also play spoiler for some of these teams as the season goes on. So definitely look for these types of teams to continue to improve, hopefully, and continue to show that they're not just gonna, say, "Hey, all right, white flag, we're done." Hopefully not. Hopefully the teams will continue to improve because not only will that improve them, but it'll also improve the other teams in the CCS as well. Hopefully.
And last game, last team we'll talk about is Horizon Gaming. I have been so impressed with them, and they absolutely stomped Grinchy Goons. I did not feel as though I just didn't feel like they had any chance. Horizon came into that. They said, you know what? We're going to play our game. When you take a look, I mean, I'm going to pull up the standings or the score real quick. Kaiser Uwu on the Oriana goes 12-1 and 16. And like you said, Orion, sometimes we don't necessarily know the full story because we didn't see the game.
Mm-hmm.
But when you also see that that Grinchy Goons in game one only had one Rift Herald and 0 towers, 0 barons, 0 dragons, you had a guy in your jungle, Gravito Princip, go 4-10 and 2, and King Kenlight go 0-8 and 2 on the Yasuo. Man, I want to see Horizon Gaming go up against Hard Hat in the finals if that's possible again, just because I just feel like Horizon Gaming is really good. And also a huge shout out to Gregorio. I mean, he bounced around a couple of teams and he found a spot, and it feels like Horizon Gaming upgraded in a massive way with him.
Yeah, I think especially for Gregorio, like you mentioned, he kind of struggled in the lock-in tournament a little bit, and then once Horizon had to drop the Sultan due to his him hitting, I think he hit D3, or he might have hit D2 even. They had to drop him from the league, so they said, "Hey, we'll pick up a pretty solid jungler out of the free agency in Gregorio." And they also picked up Decarius because their other ADC Scomps had some real life situations come up with him. So he's now their manager. But overall, like you mentioned, they've made two pretty substantial changes in the jungle and the AD carry department, and this team is just looking on the up and up every single game. So obviously, Horizon definitely looking to kind of cement themselves at the top of Thursday's group, and I do think they can do that very, very easily. I think this team is almost a guaranteed first or second place, depending on how well Goldfish Gaming plays them when they have their match that is going to happen eventually. But I do think Horizon Gaming will very easily be the 1 or the 2 team going into playoffs.
And I completely forgot, Ryan. I forgot that to mention that we also got to see Shadows pull off a 2-0. And Dirty Mid main went 17, 6, and 14 on the Zeri. And Blue Shift went 12, 7, and 15 on the Olaf. Real quick, your thoughts on how they're playing and the fact that TDR just is having another rough week.
Yeah, so Shadow Z and TDR, definitely a matchup that's kind of like you're kind of fighting for that middle of the pack team there, trying to cement yourself as like probably not like fifth or sixth, but probably looking probably like closer to like fourth. So, definitely a pretty close matchup in terms of like how these teams should be playing. But for Shadow Z to come out with a 2-0 definitely is a really good sign for them as kind of like an up and up saying, hey, like we beat a middle of the pack team. Maybe we can try to compete with the other top teams, like like the Horizon, like Goldfish, like PGO. So trying to cement themselves as like kind of like that fourth seed, in my opinion, especially after beating TDR. That really puts them in a pretty good position for them. So definitely look for Shadow Z to continue to improve. Hopefully, I know this team, like obviously they had some pretty powerful picks. They had Dirty Mid Main on the Zeri, popping off 17 and 6. Also being able to pick the Yumi matchup as well. I mean, understanding the enemy team had a Caitlyn and a Braum lane, which Zeri Yumi is like that's just a free scaling lane for them. They kind of just can play the game super super easily against them. No real actual like lockdown CC on them. Obviously, they did have the Camille in that game, so there was the potential of the Hex Tech Ultimatum keeping Zuri in place. But all the disengage they had on their team was able to have Dirty Mid Main to be so successful in that game. And for TDR, it's a team I think that they've lost 2 weeks in a row in matches where the opponents should be like kind of close to them. So that they're going to have to start picking up some wins, especially against some of the bottom half teams. Because I think I said it last week of the podcast, the Thursday group is very top heavy. So if you drop games to teams that are below you, then all of a sudden you might even have to start fighting for that sixth spot in playoffs. So for a team like TDR that should belong in playoffs, if they start dropping more games, could be a little bit dangerous for them in terms of making that push for playoffs.
All right, Ryan, we are now joined by our guest, the jungler of DNX, Shady Gecko. Shady, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well tonight. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining us. And how are you guys feeling about the season so far? I know that you're one of the top teams in your guys' conference.
Yeah, I mean, I got dragged into this a little late, and I didn't really know much about the league at all. I had heard. I actually was playing. I am still playing on a team with Vieira now is his name, but Catasol is kind of how it goes. And I had heard that he, was doing another league. I didn't really know much about it, and then somebody else actually that I hadn't ever played with reached out and said, it was Daydream, reached out and was like, "Hey, are you looking for a team at all?" And I was like, "I'm interested," and then joined in. So it's been a really fun league. I love all the content you guys are putting out. I've been playing since 2017 in amateur leagues. And this is definitely like the most active. I know it's like the joke, it's Mickey Mouse League and everything, and it does seem that the coming off playing in the Lotus Nexus League, which was a lot of really 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 strong teams, and coming off of that, it's been a little bit of a relaxing so far. I will have to say, but the content has been funny and exciting, so it's cool.
Well, Shady, you guys are facing off against a team that's just on fire right now, TA Knight. How are you guys feeling as this is the marquee matchup of the week? This is like the one that, hey, you turn on and it's a commercial for Saturday night basketball or Monday night football. Like everyone's going to be tuning in for that one. How are you guys feeling?
It's certainly exciting when you put it that way. I haven't put too much thought into it, but I know that like as far as scouting or anything goes, but just at a brief look, I think we should take it, and I'm kind of looking at it as more of a measure of how we'll do against Hard Hat Zone, because I know everybody's talking about them, and I know that they're a really strong group, and we're a relatively new team, so we can kind of look at this match and say, okay, how did we do in this match versus how did Hard Hat Zone do. So I think anything less than a stomp will be a disappointment for us.
Um, if anyone's got any questions for Shady in the chat, just hit us up and I'll see if I can get to those. But Orion, when you see DNX, what's something that comes to mind, with this team?
I think the main thing for DNX is just they've been super consistent. I mean, they've had their 4-0 match record, an 8-0 game record, haven't even dropped a single game yet. While we've been talking about Hard Hat Zone being the more dominant team so far in the CCS, I mean, they've dropped the game to Collective. So in terms of like being the seeding right, we have DNX in first with a slightly better game record that they're 8-0. So, I really want to see just how, kind of like he mentioned, how the DNX versus TA Knight. I mean, Hard Hat Zone demolished 2-0 TA Knight. So if we're looking at a 2-1 for DNX, or even potentially even drop in the series, that could be maybe like a worrying sign for playing against when they play against Hard Hat.
All right. Well, Shady, my next question for you is, when you, with your guys' team, who's the guy that gets you guys laughing the most? Or who's the class clown, essentially?
Oh man, I don't know. It's been a really fun team. We're all kind of relaxed, even in losses, which is kind of surprising or different for me, I should say. I've been on quite a few, try hard teams, and currently I'm on one of those. And not to say that those teams are better or anything, but where people are a little more invested in winning, I should say. So it's been nice to be on a team where we're relaxed, and in scrims, we obviously are still dropping games and such. So even when we do that, it's been fun.
All right. Well, this week, Shady, when I put together the Wednesday reaction, I use you guys for the anchor man, but was there what's been your guys' favorite so far? What's been your favorite reaction?
Man, there've been some good ones. That one, the one with the Star Wars, the Darth Vader entrance. I always get it. That scene is just so iconic and amazing. But the memes that come out of it, it's just such a juxtaposition of it. It's used for such a silly moment, but then it's such a cool scene. So that one stood out to me.
See, personally, my favorite is me destroying Crosspoint Origin. But we do have a question for you, Shady. Elsa the Queen, the Elsa the Queen. He says, is there another jungler in the CCS that has impressed you, or that you like to play against, or would like to play against this year?
I can't really say for Thursday. I haven't, been keeping track over that side as much. But obviously Llama, he seems like a very good jungler. I watched a little bit of his stream, so I was able to. He didn't have comms on, so I couldn't hear that as much. But his I'm looking forward to playing against him for sure. Testing my mettle.
Ryan, how healthy is it for a division, a conference, to have a rivalry like this? I mean, we got to see these two teams face each other in the lock-in finals, and now they're going to go at it. Not the finals, but they have. My bad. I meant to say, but they have the two top records in the conference.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it'll be a grudge match. If I were to pick in terms of winning, I don't know if I'd be able to tell you like for certain which team is going to end up winning. Obviously, Hard Hat has been a team that's been so aggressive, just so fast. Like they try to purely mechanically outskill anything they're playing against. And I feel like against a team like DNX, a team that's been playing so well themselves, it can definitely come down to just who is the more coordinated and like more well planned team, instead of just saying, "Hey, I'm better than you. I'm going to win this game purely based off of skill." So have to wait and see how the match is going, but I'm personally really excited for it.
And I would want to say that that's the part that I enjoy the most out of competitive and league is the pre-planning and then kind of trying to outwit your opponent. We think they're going to do this, and we think they're going to play this style, and they're going to do this in the first 5 minutes, or go for these kind of plays, and then how do you kind of adapt to that as the series goes on and such. So yeah, I agree with you that will be the deciding factor, I think.
Right. Well, it's no secret with Orion's name is based off of probably his name. Mine's based off of broken ankles. I had so many surgeries. But for you, what's the name? What's the reason behind your username?
Yeah, so my I had my best friends were twins, and they we were playing Xbox. This was before my league days, and they randomized and got one of them got like bias gecko or something like that, and so then the other one went with unbiased gecko because they were twins. And I didn't want to like go off the bias part, but I still wanted to be in on the gecko thing. You know, we were kind of inseparable at that time. And so I was like trying to brainstorm, and I just ended up going with Shady Gecko. I don't know. And that's Zach up there, my favorite champion. So I have a poster from going to the
Oh,
LCS. But yeah, Shady Zach, because my name's Zach. So
oh, there we go. Well, hey, I do love your guys' game, and actually, we have another question for you. And it's Mossy. Mossy says, "Can you elaborate more on what DNX's goals are as a team, and what are you trying to get out of the CCS?" I know that you didn't really have much expectations because you didn't really know much about the league coming in. But how do you guys feel now, knowing that you're 8-0 in games, you're 4-0 on match record so far?
uh, to have like we've obviously been doing very well so far. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it or anything. We haven't really had to like try hard in the league, but we've gone into scrims and there's obviously things that we need to work on since we're a new team together and such. But I think that with the way all the players we have and that it kind of all came together, I think anything less than grand finals would be like, dang, that's too bad. We left stuff on the plate, on the table.
Right. I know. I think I know what Ryan's answer would be with this, but for you, Shady, if you had to face either Red Panda Gaming or Zeal Blue, who would you choose and why?
Um, oh man, I can't remember how the Red Panda Gaming went, but
They forfeited one match. I don't know who it is against, but
it wasn't against us. I think it was a pretty easy match, but hmm, I think I'd say Zeal Blue. Um, just because having listened to, I did listen to a little bit of their stream after the game, and they were really thinking about like they were thinking about some of the right things after the games and like trying to you know determine their coaches were helping them like look at like where did they mess up and like what mistakes were they making, and I thought those things made sense. I think they were a little bit of copium thinking that some of the games were in control at certain points, but I think that they're trying to get better and stuff, so I would love to match up against them, I think,
right.
again if
Ryan,
we had the chance.
do you have any questions on their picks so far this year that have impressed you?
Hmm. Not honestly. Not really. Because that goes way back, and I was not gonna lie, I'm like not prepared for that question
Oh,
whatsoever.
no worries. My question for you, Shady, if you want to think about it, Ryan, is
Okay.
what has been so far with this meta? Who's been your favorite jungle pick to roll with? Whether that's a carry or tank. Like, which one do you prefer to go with in this meta so far?
Yeah, the meta has sort of slowly shifted ever since the bruiser item changes. It's gone from a gore drinker meta, I think, to a chem tank meta overall. With gore
Mhm.
drinker still being an option. Um, but I personally much prefer the chem tank style of junglers. I'm more of a supportive jungler. I like to facilitate my lanes instead of my lanes facilitating me. But I think my personal favorite is always going to be Viego because it's just so much fun. But it's not always the play.
I mean, hey, you had a pretty good game on Viego. How did it feel whenever they gave it to you?
Uh, it, I mean, yeah, yes, it felt good. It felt good. Some of those plays, I didn't want to like say too much, like I don't want to give away draft or anything like that. But yeah, obviously, I did end up getting like a triple reset in one of the fights that seemed kind of like tough for us, and then it's just like, oh well, this is easy. So that's Viego in a nutshell.
Well, my next question for you, Shady, is that I know that you were saying like, oh, the joke is it's the Mickey Mouse League. We've got our owner Flay that is honestly Flay has been really cool to talk with and work with. So for you, you've been playing amateur league for, as you said, since about 2017. What have you what's been your experience with amateur leagues? Has this one been, as you were saying, it's not as like intense, but has it been fun for you and you're not dreading having to play these games?
No, yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. I think, looking forward to the reactions and such, trying to do well so that people still think that we're good and not just, holding on to it because we're playing against worse teams or something like that. Um, yeah, yeah, I think I look forward to CCS, more than some of my other leagues I've played in the past, for sure.
All right, Shady, you guys are facing TA9. Now we know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but for you guys, did you think that with the team that you were joining that you were going to be coming to this point, that you were going to be vying for a top position? Or was this more of like, hey, we're coming together as a group and we'll see what happens?
Yeah, I can't. I think it's definitely the latter. Coming together, I didn't know anything about it. Apparently, their jungler dipped, and they obviously lost in lock in pretty disappointingly. Um, and so I don't think their expectations were super high. But then I think um, I don't want to like toot my own horn because I don't think I'm like this amazing jungler or anything. But I do think that with my experience since playing comp for 5 years, and I've gotten a lot better at like shot calling and stuff since playing over the past 2 months, playing in LPL and getting very far in that tournament. I really had to like push myself to be a better jungler. So I think bringing that solidifying voice to this team has been beneficial and has really taken us to the next level that you've seen.
All right, well, Ryan, what's the matchup that you're looking forward to the most between these two teams?
I want to see Yulveric and Snowlife against DNX's botline. I think Yulveric and Snowlife have definitely been the two main catalysts for TA Knights. Definitely, I think, like I mentioned earlier, Yulveric with the 2.3 million on Varus. Definitely kind of have to play around that a little bit, or like, kind of have some idea going into the draft, which even, like Shady mentioned, kind of like it's what he really enjoys, planning draft around, pre-planning, like potential, like, gank pathing as well, like having your waves play in certain situations. So, I'm really interested to see kind of how that plays out, because usually what happens is Yulveric and Snowlife get a lead in the bot lane, and then Yulveric 2v1's lane, while Snowlife just affects the map the entire time, and Yulveric is just a 1v2 island. So, if they're able to alter that game plan of what TA Knight is used to doing, then all of a sudden their winning ways just kind of like they're not typically used to playing any other way besides that way. So, that's probably the matchup that I'm looking forward to the most, is that 2v2.
And Shady, outside of yourself and going up against the Reedy, the jungler for TA9, what's your favorite role to watch? Because I know that you love jungle, but like, do you like watch the top lane? Do you watch mid? Like, what's the lane that you love watching the most?
You mean in general, or
Just in general, and why do you love it?
it's always jungle? As a jungler, I think it's the most interesting. It's like the seeker in Quidditch. You got these two people that are going around the map, like they're kind of like vying against each other, but also against the lanes, and it has the most it's the most communication reliant role. So you can really see where someone's saying like, "Hey, I have push here, you can move in," or "Why are you invading? I do not have prio, you're dead." Those things are always super interesting to me. Aside from jungle, since I know you said that wasn't the caveat, I would say that it's probably bot lane. I mean, you have the most people there. It's where the most action is. That's also the supportive role. I think seeing how the supports play around each other is the second most macro intensive uh, action you can get. So as a spectator, so yeah, watching the supports play. It's aside from jungle.
For you as a player, what's it mean when you join? For example, when we see the Discord server for like trash talk, what's it mean for you to see people are actually actively involved with that and they're actively trash talking each other and hyping up these matches?
Well, I would hope that every league has some form of banter going on, and I always like to jump in. Just I'm not really I'm not very aggressive and mean person in real life, but I like getting into the banter channel and flaming some people, and talking up myself and my team because it's like if I'm not gonna do it, who is? So it's fun to talk some smack. So yeah, it is good to see. You don't want that to be dissuaded too much, as long as people aren't bullying or anything.
All right, if you were to replace your mid laner and you were to put Flay as your guys' mid laner, what would your record? What would your record be?
Oh man, can I say 0-16? Is that? Am I gonna get kicked out? Am I disabled already? I don't know. I don't know what Flay's. Xernian says 0-4, so there you go. We lost already. I guess it's an agreement. 0-16, yeah, I'm seeing it.
So it says 2-0.
And then we 2-0 hard heads on, yeah, for sure. I don't know how good Flay is at league. I haven't looked or anything, but
I'm pretty sure he's just like a gold 4 player. So
yeah, we lose.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm just kidding. We stick him on Yumi mid. We stick him on Yumi mid. I play Diego. We're good to go.
I'll never forget, Shady, before you joined it was actually in the playoffs last year, where there was a gold 4 player or gold 3 player that was like an emergency sub for some team, and he beat Huffzone in a match and posted Huffzone's guide to playing a champion. I think it was Trendemir, how to play a Trendemir, and posted it and beat him with it. So it was great trash talk from that, but it was also a gold 3 player coming through. So that was pretty fun. Yeah.
Always. Yeah.
All right. Well, my next question for you, Shady, is that you've been playing League since 2017. What's it mean that you're still, part of this, that you're that you're playing this game for 5 years and you're still part of the. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Finish your question.
Oh, and I was going to say, you've been playing for 5 years and that you've been, still part of it and you're at the top of your craft in this league. What's it mean for you to be a part of that?
Yeah, so I've actually been playing since 2013, I think, League of Legends. But yeah, I moved out of state and so I picked up League of Legends as like a way to hang out with people back home, and it's definitely been a great avenue for that. And I was kind of on and off, and I was sort of dipping into like maybe I don't want to play League anymore. What even is the point? Like my friends weren't playing as often and stuff. And then this Risen Esports thing posted on Reddit in 2017, and it was like, hey, we do join up, with your friends, 5v5, play together every week. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds cool. And since 2017, I've been playing, amateur pretty much. There have been little breaks here, but mostly, every year I've been playing at least, 1 or 2 leagues pretty consistently. So that has definitely kept me interested in League of Legends in general and the pro scene and everything, and keeping up with the metas and, how to get the next edge and whatnot. So it feels cool to
Ryan, I feel old. I've been playing as long as Shady Gecko. I feel old, man.
Well, I am old, so
yeah. Hey, you know what? I feel you. I'm like, what was I? Graduated college in 2017. I feel old now.
Well, I have 2 years on you, so.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. But man, Ryan, when you see the fact that we've got older players, younger players, what's that say about the league itself and how much it's grown and how much what's the word I'm looking for? That it's not just it's a bunch of young kids that are bored out of their mind, but like we've got people that have been part of the league scene for a while, but then we also have new blood.
Yeah, I think the amateur scene is growing a lot. I think obviously for a guy like Shady, he comes with a lot of experience and a lot of just pure knowledge that some of the younger guys might not necessarily know about. Like they could be very mechanically prowess, but at the same time, like if you don't necessarily know how to play with your team and coordinate with your team and figure things out, then you can have like some problems inside of your team. Which kind of he mentioned like he's like DNX is a pretty brand new team. Didn't necessarily know what exactly to get out of it, but due to his knowledge and knowledge about the game, knowledge about like team structure, like how a team should function. Obviously this team has been doing well because of that. So it's really nice to have some veterans on your team. Just even if you do have like a newer team, like kind of like this whole situation with like even like Team Liquid, right? Like that team has so many veterans. It's like the team is like, even though they're a brand new team, they fit so well together and they're so well polished, and it just shows they're a really good team. So,
all right, well, we're coming up at the end of the broadcast, and Shay, do you have any predictions? Are you guys going to 2-0? Are you guys going to 2-0 TA night?
For sure, Panzer is going to run over Kobe. It's going to be a slaughter fest. I don't think their jungler is going to be able to touch me at all. And despite the bot lanes being very contested, I think it's going to be a 2-0 smash for sure.
All right, well, Shady, Ryan, thank you guys so much for joining us this week. Don't forget, folks, that on Wednesday and Thursday, we have matches starting at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We'll also have the analyst desk on Wednesday shortly before that. It's going to be so much fun. Shout out to everyone that joined us in the chat. And guys, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll catch you next time on the CC Zone.